Hey guys, I'm Inverse, and finally we are here. The 10th and final part in the build order breakdown episode 1 Volks Sniper MG video guide series. After what seemed like endless months of videos and months between videos and nonsense going on and this, that, and the other thing, this is it. This is the final video, and there is no one else I would rather have starring in this final production than my good friend Wuuuuuu, the inspiration for all of this. He was the guy who got me into using Volks Sniper MG in the first place. He was the guy I learned it off. He was the guy who taught me. He was the guy who showed me how to do it. If you hate how I use it, if you love how I use it, you can blame him, you can thank him. He is the guy. And we're going to take a look at one of his games right now. South Stirs is going up against Symbiosis in one of the most recent, or one of the more recent 1v1 game replays tournaments. This may have been the one he won. I'm not exactly sure. Let's get the game going right now. Wu is one of, if not my absolute favorite Volks Sniper MG player to watch. I absolutely love his hyper-aggressive early game and his calculated mid and late game. He's very, very good at applying pressure with his early units in a cost-effective manner, while following up in a safe and stable fashion that allows him to deflect any sort of tech and end up at an advantage and in a position to push that advantage later on in the game. As we're going to see in this game, he's going to do a few things that I don't personally do, but that I could definitely do better, and shows us why they're good and why they can be bad, but with good play they don't have to be bad. Now we're going to see a pretty standard capping order come out right at the beginning. There's nothing too terribly fancy about this. He elects to cap straight up to the left with his Pioneer. If you are an avid stream watcher of mine, or even a stream watcher at all of mine, you will know I like to cap this munitions point very, very early with that Pioneer squad. It is, of course, a matter of personal preference. As we're going to see, this Volk squad is going to head up right here and cap this munitions point. So it's really not too much of a difference in terms of net gain on munitions in the early game, and gives him a slightly more forward early game position to press up, and gives him an extra combat unit in that super early game in case his opponent tries something funny like a very, very early rifle rush to this left hand side, which can be difficult to deal with if your Pioneer is back here and then over here because he's capping, and you only have this Volk squad as a combat unit against a Volks and an engineer, or a rifle rather, and an engineer of your opponent. So we're going to have the second Volks come out in a second here. This Pioneer is going to come wire off this side of green cover. This is something I like to do. This is something I implore anyone to do on this map. It's very, very easy to do, doesn't take much time, and is pretty much only beneficial to you. It's a very, very good thing to do. I also like wiring off this side, as you'll know if you watched any of my other, or not really any of my other, but my other South Stursdorf Volks Sniper MG builder breakdown videos. The second Volk squad is going to come up to the left hand side, and we're going to see in a very short period of time something very unique about Wu, and something that differentiates him primarily from Cepha, which I'm going to use as kind of a reference point since he was the player we looked at very recently in actually the previous part. In fact, Cepha was a player who capped a lot with his Volks. Even after the initial engagements, after the super duper early game, he loved to cap with his Volks. He split up his Volks a lot as well. Wu is not like that. Wu absolutely never will split up his Volks. You're going to see this game, he's going to keep them around the entire game. He's going to harass with them, he's going to push, he's going to defend. Everything he's going to do with his Volk is going to keep them together. Now on this side over here, just a small note, I thought this was really, really cool when I was watching this game the first time. He's just trying to delay right now. This is a very, very difficult map for Wehrmacht, and in my opinion, when you get to late game, because of all of the fuel. not really late game, but mid game, when your opponent can get a very, very early Sherman, simply because there's a ridiculous amount of fuel on this map, and it's very, very easy to secure it as an American player. Now, Wuu's got a few tricks up his sleeve to kind of prevent this. I don't know if there's something weird going on with this map. It's the nighttime version of Stursdorf, and stuff's been flickering like crazy. I don't know, it doesn't like my graphics card. But he is just delaying on this right-hand side. He wants his opponent to have as little fuel as possible in order to make it as easy as possible for him going into the mid-game. And this is kind of what I was talking about with the moving around as a group with these Volks. He's using these as a unit. He's not playing traditional Wehrmacht. Traditional Wehrmacht is pick a side, take a side, defend a side. Wuuuuu does not like to do that. Wuuuuu is going to be aggressive. Wuuuuu is going to be fluent. He's going to push left. He's going to push right. And as we can see right here, he's going to force his opponent to react, and he's going to force fights whenever he can. In his own words, the purpose for Volks in the early game is to fight. The purpose of rifles in the early game is to cap. That is kind of the wisdom I have gone off of ever since he told that to me. God, I don't even know, a year ago, something like that. Just kind of the general philosophy that you want to be doing as much damage as possible with your Volkswagen, in the early game. And you want to force your opponent to fight you instead of cap, because your opponent wants resources. And you don't want him to have those resources. You want him to be fighting you and wasting manpower on fights instead of tech, which will delay everything and make things easier for you. Now, another thing to note is this early flamer. And the reason Wuuuuu can afford this early flamer is not because Stursdorf is such an amazing munitions map, which it is. Of course, he's been cut off from this munitions point for a while now, so I'd argue that he actually doesn't have that much munitions. But the reason he was able to afford that flamer was because he doesn't really need that many mines. And why doesn't he need that many mines? Because he's being extremely fluid with his Volks. You'll notice he's only capping when there's no engagements to be had. He's keeping his Volks together. He's using his MG as support and not as the linchpin of his army. He's not focusing his efforts at all around the MG. And because of that, he doesn't really have to defend any flanks. As you'll notice, there's never been a flank in the traditional sense of the word this game, because Wuuuuu hasn't let it happen. There's never been an opportunity for Symbiosis, who's actually his opponent. Shipwreck Cove is Symbiosis, who's actually had a lot of 1v1 success lately. If you've been keeping up on the WMD Invitational and any of the recent 1v1 tournaments, Symbiosis has been tearing things up. Very, very impressive play. As I was saying, though, there hasn't really been any opportunities for Symbiosis to flank. And it's because there's been Volks clumped up like this. He being Wuuuuu, has been very, very proactive about keeping everything on the move and not sticking to one static area. There was actually a counter sniper over here that I neglected to mention, but Wuuuuu is going to rebuild that sniper. Which is something you sometimes have to do in a build like this. It can be very, very annoying dealing with a sniper in a situation like this when you have gone tier 2 and you don't have a sniper of your own. Now, as we see, getting into the mid game, not much changes. This is where Wuuuuu transitions from super hyper aggressive to far more stable, far more calm and calculated. He makes sure he has the units he needs to defend what his opponent might be doing. You'll notice he's actually going to, when he builds his Gren, get a very, 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 very early preemptive Shrek. And I'm actually going to pause the game right here because I want to point something out in a second. Let's play this for a little bit more. Alright, sniper's in this building. Something's gonna happen in a second. Let's watch things unfold. Sniper's walking up, and that happens. Okay? This happens. Sniper snipes another sniper out of a building. If I were you, and I'm not Wuuuuu, so I don't know his rationalization behind this, the percent chance of hitting a sniper in a building is extremely low. I don't have the exact numbers. I believe it is under 50%, though it might just be right on 50%. This is extremely risky because the sniper is going to be able to automatically fire back if you don't actually kill this. I would not recommend anyone does this. This has worked out amazingly for Wuuuuuu this time. And it's a stroke of good luck, fortune. I'm not really sure if this was a calculated risk. Very well might have been. I just don't recommend anyone else try that. Or if you are going to try it, understand that it's probably not going to work. And if it does work, you should count your blessings because you are far luckier than I have ever been when I've tried that, because it has never worked for me and I've tried it a few times. And it's quite embarrassing when you shoot a sniper in a building and you miss and he just bam, you're dead. It's like, well, that was a fun counter snipe. Well, as we see, Wuuuuuu getting the Gren out. He is going for a Gren at this point because, first of all, there was the sniper shown by Symbiosis, which is a good indication that there probably won't be any sort of super early vehicle play. And secondly, we have a lot of munitions on the field for Wuuuuuu right now, which makes it very, very easy for him to get a Panzer Shrek right away on this Gren squad, which is what he's going to do. Now, decent map control for Wuuuuuu. Keeping the left side, which is exactly what you want to be doing on a map like this. The left side should be your focus, and you should push into the right and the middle as circumstances allow you. We are going to see a second Gren come up. This is also going to be equipped with a very, very fast Gren. The Gren will be equipped with a fast Gren. Yes, you heard that correctly. It will be equipped with another very fast Shrek, and that's another one of the instances of Wuuuu's hyper safety in the mid game. His understanding that his early game is very, very powerful, and if he can survive the mid game, he can go into the late game with a solid tech route in plan and get something done with it, which in this case is going to be a slight deviation from Wuuuu's norm, which is actually a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 style. Now, a style like that is fairly difficult to play on a map like Stursdorf unless you go very, very heavy on the tier 2 aspect of it. And that's because, like I've mentioned before, Shermans are so incredibly powerful, so incredibly popular on this map that it's very, very difficult to effectively use tier 3 when your opponent is most likely going to be able to very easily field the ideal counter to your tier 3 units without giving too much effort to it. That was unfortunate. That's kind of funny when you think about it. Single burst, bam, you're dead. So that kind of sucks, but that's okay because Wuuuuuu is in a very, very good offensive position right now. If we look in the base, he's going to be teching up to tier 3. And he's actually going to skip right past tier 3 and go straight to tier 4. And the reason for that is he is able to efficiently and effectively react to whatever his opponent does using that tier 4 tech. If his opponent decides to go for Tank Depot, he can get a Panther. If his opponent decides to get more snipers, he can go Ostwind. If his opponent decides for some sort of middle ground, he can kind of mix the two. He can maybe go Panzer IV. He has a lot more options against what his opponent could possibly be doing on a map like this. On a map like Langres or even Angleville, those are maps where you probably want to be going tier 3 instead because it's going to be a little bit more difficult for your opponent to get tanks out. It's going to be a little bit easier for you to use your tier 3 units in conjunction with your tier 2 units in order to defend any possible heavier tech in the later game because you'll have more time to prepare for things. And you're going to have more money to spend on those preparations because they're going to come later. So in this situation, tier 4 is going to come up soon. It's actually almost being built, or it's almost done being built. That's going to give Wuuuuuu a lot of flexibility, and that combined with the fact that he has a very dominating hold on the map right now, and he has a very comfortable set of units. You'll notice he did elect to skip on the pack, and the main reason for that is his ability to get up some sort of tier 4 tank counter if he needs it, because he knows at this point there is almost certainly not going to be a M8 on the field right now, and because there hasn't been any bars, it is most likely going to be a Sherman. Now it could be some sort of crazy heavy sniper play that's going to try to catch Wuuuuuu off guard or something like that. It is a Sherman, and I knew it was a Sherman, so I'm kind of cheating. But it could have been some sort of heavy sniper play, and that would have been perfectly fine for what Wu is doing right now. He would have been able to get an Ostwind out, and it would have made things really, really difficult for Symbiosis at this point in the game. That being said, what Wu is doing right now is still going to be very, very difficult to Symbiosis right now. This isn't kind of the all or nothing tier 2, tier 3. That was painful. It's not really the all or nothing tier 2, tier 3 divide, where you either go tier 2 and you go for a lot of Grens with Vet, and if your opponent goes Shermans, you're in really good shape. If he goes Snipers, you're in really bad shape. Or vice versa, you go tier 3, your opponent goes Shermans, you are in terrible shape. Relatively speaking, of course, you're in decent shape with tier 2, but you don't have a pack, which is a very, very difficult situation to be in against any sort of vehicle play, even with Panzerschrecks. Or your opponent goes for an M8, or not for an M8, but for Snipers, and you're in an extremely good position. This delays everything a little bit, which in turn gives Wu a little bit of time to determine what his opponent is doing, which he now knows to be Tank Depot with, of course, Weapon Support Center support, since he does still have that Weapon Support Center, but it's a main investment in Tank Depot. That's a lot of money getting the Sherman out on the field, and Symbiosis is going to want to get as much use as possible out of it. So with that in mind, we're going to be seeing a Panther come out very, very quickly, and that's going to easily be able to fend off the Sherman, far more so than even a pack could, simply because it is far more mobile, far easier to move around the map with, and of course repairable, so you don't have to worry about it being decrewed, about it dying to an artillery strike, about it having to be reinforced and stuff like that, which are additional manpower costs on top of the upfront cost, whereas the Panther is far more expensive but also lacks any of those later upkeep, quote-unquote, manpower costs, which really do add up later in the game. And if you are a player who is comfortable and confident in your ability to keep vehicles alive, vehicles will almost always be better than infantry in terms of cost effectiveness. Of course, there are some situations where you're going to want infantry instead of vehicles because of time constraints or resource constraints and stuff like that. But in a situation like this, what Wu is doing is absolutely what you want to be doing. And as we are going to see very shortly, is going to put him in a very, very good position, transitioning out of this mid-game period into a late game and into a race for VPs, which is what a lot of games on Langra and Stursdorf especially end up turning into, especially at higher levels when it's very, very difficult for either player to push across the map far enough to actually deal enough damage and kill a player outright. There's far more kind of mini stalemate situations like we're going to see in this game. And a sniper died apparently. But I didn't see it last time and I didn't see it this time, so oh well. Actually, a funny story. The first time I loaded up this replay, this is the night version of Stursdorf, in case you didn't notice, which is very, very pretty. It's actually more pretty up here if we look there because of the lights and stuff. This was like all black when I opened this replay the first time. I was very, very confused, but a restart of Co managed to fix that somehow. So despite me being in computer science and theoretically having knowledge of these sorts of things, I had no idea what was going on, so that was kind of strange and interesting, but funny that it just sort of resolved itself. Anyways, we have an Ostwind out right now, which is a perfect complement, obviously, to the Panther, and we're going to be getting some veterancy coming up pretty soon. Vet 1 on tanks is absolutely essential if you're even building a single tank. It gives all tanks an extra 20% health, which is a ridiculous amount. An extra fifth of health is absolutely awesome and is not something you should ever discount. So I strongly recommend anyone who ever goes tanks at all, get Vet 1. It's absolutely, positively worth it. Is that Mary Poppins lyrics? No, that's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Never mind. Anyways, let's pretend that didn't happen. And let's fast forward a little bit, because this isn't the exciting part yet. There's an exciting part. I promise, guys, it's exciting. Really, the VPs are looking pretty grim. Looking pretty ugly, but that was painful. Wuuuuuu, of course, going defensive. Actually went right-hand side this game. Gonna use that for Firestorm and stuff. Lots of manpower being floated right now. We're gonna have a Panzer IV out on the field very soon. We don't have any veterancy on the tanks yet. We do have Vet 1 on the infantry. Gonna want to see veterancy on the tanks as soon as possible. We did see a sniper right there, which is troublesome for Wuuuuuu because he lost his sniper, and he's not. Oh, yep, he is going to lose his Sherman there, which is also unfortunate. And maybe he doesn't get vet this game. I actually don't remember. I seem to have tuned that part of this game out. Who knows? He gets stuff. He builds stuff. Excuse me. He doesn't lose his Panzer IV, which is good. Or maybe he does. Yeah, he does. Never mind. He doesn't lose it. Boom! Dead. Lies. Never listen to a word I say. But at this point, if not for the VPs, we would be in a little bit of trouble. Losing the Ostwind, then the Panther, then the Gren Squad, then no, not another Gren Squad, but the Sniper and Panzer IV, and everything being lost, really, almost losing that squad. Vet 2 coming up for the infantry right now, actually probably going to elect to pass on the tank veterancy at this point, seeing as he has no more tanks. Generally going to want tanks if you're going to invest in tank veterancy. But at this point, it's going to be a frantic VP race. Running for them VPs frantically. Kill it, kill him, kill him, kill him! Ah! Ah, kill him! Cap it, cap it, cap, 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 cap! VPs, 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 cap, cap! Ah, proper, proper, proper! Oh my god, I can't even analyze! Analyze! I can't even speak English! That's how exciting this is! Oh my god. See, the problem is, if any of you know how this tournament, how the outcome of this tournament goes, this is far less exciting for you because you know how the outcome of this game goes. And with the VPs ticking down so much, you can probably guess what's going to happen. 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off! Alrighty, guys. That's it. I can't believe I'm saying this, but that is the grand finale. That is the conclusion to the Build Order Breakdowns Episode 1 Volks Sniper MG video guide series. I appreciate each and every one of you who stuck with me during this long journey. It was a learning experience for me as much as it was hopefully a learning experience for all of you. I hope I helped at least some of you out, and I hope I will be able to continue to help you guys out through the various other projects I have in mind, and I hopefully will have down the pipeline. I am probably going to take a break from these sort of larger projects and do a few smaller one-off kind of analysis pieces and educational pieces that won't be nearly as in-depth as this one, but will hopefully have the same sort of spirit and the same focus as this series has had. In closing, I would like to thank Cepha, of course, for the production of strategy, because without it I would not have been able to do this. I'd like to thank Aimstrong for the awesome games and for the inspiration. I would, of course, absolutely like to thank Wuuuuuu for teaching me this strategy, for helping me out, for playing a heck of a lot of games with me with it and against it to help me refine some stuff, practice some stuff. And of course, thanks to all of my Reign of Madness clan members and to all of you viewers who watch my stuff on YouTube, who watch my stream. I recently passed 450 followers on Twitch TV, which is very, very awesome. I am very, very close to the 2,000 subscriber mark on YouTube, which is equally as awesome. So thank you guys for everything. I really hope you enjoyed it. As always, I would appreciate any sort of comments, any sort of feedback in the comments section via email at inversegr@gmail.com. Of course, check me out on Twitch TV, as I mentioned before, twitch.tv/inversetv if you would like to watch me stream. I'm streaming nearly daily these days. Also, check me out on Twitter, twitter.com/inversetv. You'll be able to get updates on when new videos go live, on when my stream goes live, and on what I had for breakfast. Yay! But aside from that, I've got nothing else to say. That's it. See you guys later.